So this video is going to be comparing Raimi's Spider-Man 2 with Spider-Man Far From Home, but a couple things came up. Firstly, I realized that the MCU movies and Raimi movies aren't really comparable. Besides the fact that Peter Parker Spider-Man is the main character, these two films have almost nothing in common. Even at the most fundamental level, these films are just completely different. But the second thing that came up is Video by HITOP Films, another creator who makes videos about movies and has an affinity for Spider-Man, and someone whose opinion I actually care about. He's made some great videos in the past about movies and filmmaking that I really recommend you go check out, but recently he uploaded a video talking about why he didn't like the new Spider-Man movie, and I don't really think he gives the movie as much credit as it deserves. Now, before I get into this, I just want to clarify that he's truly an inspiration of mine who I've admired for the better part of a year, so I'm not trying to throw shade at him personally. I'd also like to clarify that both these videos are rather opinion-based, and I am in no way implying that you have to like this movie. You can like whatever you want, but I just want to clear up some of the problems that I have with some of the points that he makes in his video so I can feel that the movie is more fairly represented. Now, I'm not going to be addressing everything that he says in the video. I'll leave a link to it in the description so you can watch it yourself. There's just a couple things that got to me. At the beginning of the video, he says this:
Spider-Man Far From Home takes everything that worked about Endgame, every heartbreaking moment, and turns it into a joke within the first 2 minutes of the film. I looked over to my friend while I Will Always Love You was playing over goofy headshots of the dead Avengers, the dead heroes, while they were making a meme of the dead heroes, and his jaw had dropped to the floor. Right off the bat, how am I supposed to be invested in this Peter Parker's grief if the film is so focused on making fun of that grief?
Now, my initial reaction to this decision was similar, but it starts to make sense when you think about it in context. Endgame is an emotional movie. I've seen this film a grand total of 5 times, and I have managed to make it all the way to the end without shedding a tear a whopping 0. What can I say, I'm an emotional guy. But the point is, between Infinity War and Endgame, there is about 5.5 hours of movie, all of which are painstakingly emotional. And the comedic opening to Far From Home works in this context for 2 reasons. The first is to set the tone for the rest of the movie. This movie isn't an insane emotional roller coaster like Endgame. It's a relatively feel-good, lighthearted movie. Starting the movie with a powerful emotional recap that perfectly encapsulates the heartbreaking nature of, say, Tony Stark's death or the hero's return wouldn't work with the tone of the film going forward. It'd be a complete tonal shift that wouldn't feel right. The second way it works is in the same way that the lighthearted nature of the film itself works after Endgame. It's a nice, happier film that takes the tone of the MCU as a whole and shifts it from very emotionally heavy to lighthearted and fun. So of course a film that exists to shift the mood of events prior wouldn't uphold the mood it's trying to get away from when recapping said events. Another thing that I want to talk about here is kind of a mesh point that's broken up between multiple parts of the video. He mentions how the film doesn't know what it wants to be, and how Peter doesn't grow or change in the film, and I couldn't disagree more. This movie is a story about Peter growing up and learning to be less reliant on a mentor figure and make his own way for himself. In the video, he complains about how his relationship with Mysterio isn't really developed, and how Peter just gives him the glasses in a mere 20 minutes of screen time. He also mentions how the movie just sort of forgets Peter's grief in regards to Tony Stark and just tosses it aside. But he missed the point that the movie was trying to make about how Peter is so torn over losing Tony, over losing his mentor figure, over losing the man that he admired and looked up to and strived to be like, that he became overly trusting as he tries to fill in the gap and quickly latches on to Quentin Beck because of this. And the movie is about him facing consequences due to his overly trusting nature and learning to make his own way and move past his need for someone to look up to. He learns to fill the gap his loss of Tony left by becoming the hero Tony wanted him to be. In the video, he mentions how Uncle Ben is pretty much forgotten about in this movie. And it would seem like that at face value, but think about it. Uncle Ben was an important mentor figure to him, just like Tony. After losing Uncle Ben, he became overly trusting and quickly latched on to Tony, forming an attachment to him and admiring and respecting him. Then, after he died, the cycle repeated itself and he latched on to Mysterio. This film very much focuses on Peter learning from the consequences of his actions and breaking out of that cycle and becoming more self-sufficient.